The throne room of the Valthrine Empire fell silent as Queen Zalara's six-fingered hand gripped the armrest of her obsidian seat. Her crimson eyes burned with barely contained rage as she watched the impossible scene unfolding before her. Aiden Rowe stood in the center of the grand chamber, covered in grease and coolant from the morning's repairs, looking entirely unbothered by the presence of royalty. Beside him sat Carvoth, the queen's personal war beast, a creature engineered for one purpose: to kill without hesitation, without mercy, and without question. The wolf-like predator stood nearly 8 feet tall at the shoulder, its obsidian scales glinting under the bioluminescent lights, rows of crystalline teeth visible even with its maw closed. And yet, the beast that had torn through rebel battalions and made enemy commanders weep in terror now sat obediently at the human's feet, its massive tail wagging slightly. "Explain this," Queen Zalara hissed, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her species. "Explain why my instrument of death behaves like a domesticated pest in your presence." Aiden wiped his hands on his already filthy coveralls and shrugged. "Don't know what to tell you, Your Majesty. I was just fixing the coolant system in Bay 7 when he wandered in. Thought he was going to eat me at first." "It," the Queen corrected sharply. "Carvoth is not a he. It is a weapon, a perfectly designed killing machine that answers only to my genetic signature." She descended the steps of her throne, her flowing robes trailing behind her like liquid silver. "Yet for 3 cycles now it has abandoned its post to seek you out. It ignores my commands. It refuses to feed unless you are present." The other members of the royal court shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't just an embarrassment to their queen, it was an impossibility. The Valthrine had spent centuries perfecting their war beasts, encoding loyalty into their very DNA. Nothing could override that bond. Nothing except apparently one unremarkable human mechanic. Aiden scratched behind Carvoth's ear ridge, and the creature's tail wagged harder. "Maybe he just likes me." "It does not like," Queen Zalara snapped. "It does not feel. It is incapable of—" She stopped mid-sentence as Carvoth made a low, rumbling sound that could only be described as a purr. Her eye membrane flickered in disbelief. "Demonstration," she commanded, her voice tight. "Carvoth, attend." The predator didn't move. "Carvoth, attend your queen immediately." Still nothing. The beast's attention remained fixed on Aiden, who had crouched down to inspect a scratch on the creature's foreleg. Queen Zalara's skin flushed a deep purple, the Valthrine equivalent of fury turning a face red. "This is unacceptable. You will tell me what sorcery you have employed, human, or I will—" "Hey, boy," Aiden said quietly, ignoring the queen's threat. "Go say hi to your mom." Carvoth immediately rose and padded over to Queen Zalara, pressing his massive head against her chest with enough force to make her stumble backward. She caught herself, shock replacing anger on her elegant features. The court erupted in whispers. How? The word escaped the queen's lips as barely more than a breath. She placed a trembling hand on Carvoth's head, feeling the warmth of the creature she had raised from an embryo, the weapon she had designed to be unquestionably loyal. "How did you do that?" Aiden stood, dusting off his knees. "I didn't do anything special, really. First day I met him, he was having some kind of episode, thrashing around, knocking over equipment. Everyone else ran, but I could see he was caught in some cables. Took me 20 minutes to cut him free without getting killed." He smiled at the memory. "After that, he just started following me around." "That proves nothing," Queen Zalara said, but her voice had lost its edge. "Carvoth has been freed from entanglements before. It has never formed an attachment." "Maybe," Aiden said, walking closer to the queen and her beast. The royal guards tensed, but Zalara raised a hand to stop them. "But I didn't just free him and walk away. I sat with him for a while after. Talked to him. Made sure he was okay." He met the queen's eyes. "When's the last time anyone did that?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Queen Zalara's expression flickered through several emotions before settling on something uncomfortably close to guilt. "It is a weapon," she said. But the words sounded hollow now. "Weapons do not require comfort." "Yeah, well, maybe that's the problem." Aiden gestured to the predator who had settled between them, its massive head swiveling to look at both the human and the queen. "You bred him to be loyal, to be deadly, to follow orders. But you forgot that anything smart enough to do all that is also smart enough to want more than just being a tool. You presume to lecture me on my own creations? No, ma'am. I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken things." He placed a hand on Carvoth's neck. But I've learned that sometimes the problem isn't in the design. Sometimes things break because nobody's taking care of them. Queen Zalara stared at the human for a long moment. In the 3 cycles since Aiden Rowe had been conscripted to work on her warships, she had barely noticed him. He was one of hundreds of humans captured during the resource wars, assigned to maintenance duties throughout the fleet. Unremarkable, disposable, yet this unremarkable human had accomplished what her empire's greatest geneticists insisted was impossible. Karvoth, she said softly, using the creature's name rather than calling it a weapon. Attend. The predator looked at Aiden, who nodded. Only then did Karvoth move to his queen's side. A strange expression crossed Queen Zalara's face. For the first time in her long reign, she felt something she couldn't quite name. It wasn't quite jealousy, wasn't quite admiration. It was something closer to understanding. Human, she said finally. Aiden Rowe, you will report to the royal chambers daily. You will teach me what you have learned. About mechanics? Aiden asked, confused. About breaking and fixing, the queen replied, one hand resting on Karvoth's head, feeling the warmth there, the life. About care. The court erupted in shocked murmurs, but Queen Zalara silenced them with a glance. She had built an empire on the strength of her weapons, on the perfection of her designs, but perhaps the humans, primitive as they seemed, understood something her people had forgotten in their pursuit of perfect control. As Aiden left the throne room, Karvoth's eyes followed him to the door. The predator whined softly, and for the first time in cycles, Queen Zalara didn't correct the behavior. Instead, she whispered, "Tomorrow. You will see him tomorrow." The beast settled at her feet, content, and Queen Zalara sat on her throne, fury transformed into something far more dangerous. Curiosity about what else humanity might teach an empire that thought it had already perfected everything.